Well,
Thank you very much for coming.
yeah. Sit down. Okay, well, thank you for coming today. It's really great to have people in the office, as you know, but still some people don't feel comfortable. So we're still continuing with the hybrid type of learning. So again, if you guys can be patient with me with the Zoom and the chat, that would be great, but I will get to your questions that when you put them in the chat. So yeah, so the first panel that we did in July, we had a couple of our top agents. Everyone loved it because you learn from each other. And so today is to get to know your ALC. They have been your Agent Leadership Council for this year. And so they're really bummed because they only have like a month and a half left. And then we pick a new Agent Leadership Council. But that being said, very experienced, actually it's like the top 6 in your office, not just within the top 20%. So I'm gonna let them introduce themselves, how long you've been in real estate, where you started. Did you start at KW? Did you start somewhere else? And what attracted you or drove you to get into real estate? So we'll start with Steve and we'll continue. And when Jen and Art get here, we'll throw them into the mix. So.
All right, so first I want to say, looking at myself, camera definitely adds at least 15.
How many cameras are there?
I haven't looked in the mirror in quite some time. One of those is a thing. So anyway, my name is Steve Pizzicelli. I don't know all the questions Jamie just said, but I've been in real estate since 1984. I started out with my father, who owned a small mom-and-pop shop, Red Carpet Realty in Methuen. Got a lot of experience from him, and how he operated his business and how he did things. From there, he opened a Remax franchise in Methuen and in North Andover. We were the 5th franchise purchased in New England. My dad had huge beliefs in himself and what his abilities were, and very positive outlook and attitude. Just thought, his belief in real estate was the agents did make the company didn't make the agents. As an owner, that was something that was unheard of. Most companies would tell you they hate you. His belief was the agents who were made the company. So he thought Remax was a great franchise, and it was. And we joined there. We operated that for about 25 years until after he had passed, my brother and I sold the company probably I don't know how many years later, but and we stayed there as a team, as a Kelly team, and worked in Remax for about 4 or 5 years, and then joined KW in 2013, 2014 in December. So I've been here ever since. And, I liked KW because when I came here, first of all, they kind of were in line with my thought process of my vision of how real estate should operate and be from a local company, not the big picture, the small picture. And with Ron and
Alan.
Yeah, people that were here at the time. And so we've been here ever since and done pretty well, and I like it a lot.
What attracted you? Why did you want to be in real estate? Is it just because family?
So my dad owned the Dairy Queen in Methuen for a long time, and I was making ice cream cones for a long time while I went to college, and I was having a ball doing that. And ultimately, I got to college. I said I got to figure out what I want to do, but I didn't want to make ice cream cones anymore. So
Why not?
foolish mistake. I'll tell you, the biggest mistake. Should have kept up the ice cream stand. And anyway, so I figured while I was figuring out what I want to do, I'd go work in real estate.
Where'd you go to college for?
Where'd you go? Business management. So I figured I'd just wait and see while I was trying to find a job. I took real estate, and I fell in love with people. I fell in love with working with buyers and working with sellers, and just I feel this, I don't know how many years later it is now, 37 years or whatever it is later, I still get the thrill of a sale. When I sell something, I still get excited. I still love helping people.
Thank you. Jeffrey,
Yes.
you're on. All right, so you have a little information about how long you've been in real estate. Did you start at KW? Did you start somewhere else? And what attracted you to getting into the real estate industry?
So I've been doing real estate for 3 years and a half. And I started here. It was the first place that I came. I met Susan Donnie. Afternoon here. We have a friend in common. And I got into real estate. I was in the process of buying a house. And then I don't know, I just dove in, I started reading and I started seeing, you know, how much realtors they make. And I'm like, well, this is a career that maybe it could be for me. I know that I was good at sales. So every job that I had before was like sales job.
I just want to time out. I mean, you can spread out.
Thank you. Oh, man.
I was sweating for you guys. I was like, that's a little COVID like close. I mean, I don't know. I don't want to have any. All right, so sorry about that, Jeffrey. Okay, now that you guys are comfortable, okay, can you continue?
Yeah, so I went and took the test and Susan brought me here and I like the fact that when she presented me KW, I remember that year and the year before it was on top of Microsoft and Google when it came to training.
Mhm.
And that really stand out to me. Because I was brand new and I needed to learn how to do everything. And yeah, it was great because I remember those days when I started, it was like every day, there was no COVID back then. So all the trainings, it was half of this room. And I learned a lot. And, I think it was the best thing, the best choice I did to switch.
All right, we'll go to Art so we can catch your breath. All right,
So first
Art,
off, I apologize for being tardy.
that's a real estate industry.
Yeah.
It was all Ad's fault.
Was it
Just push
inspection?
Art. Yeah. tell them.
I'm going to tell you the story. There was an inspection that both were. I'm the listing agent and she's the buyer's agent. And we're at the same property, so that's why we're both coming in at the same time. Anyway, so why did I get into real estate?
So tell us a little bit about yourself. How long you've been in the industry? Did you start at KW or were you with a different company before? And what attracted you to get into the real estate industry?
Well, my background is I got into real estate 5 years ago. I was never with another company. Keller Williams is the only one that not the only one I interviewed with. Actually, I interviewed with multiple. I went to Coldwell Banker, Prudential, and KW. The thing that attracted me to KW was the educational platform that they have. They have a lot more resources available to them. I didn't have to go down to Waltham to go get trained. It was all in-house. They had a lot of online training options even then, now even more. And I love the culture. The three things that they talk about in the mission statement was God, family, and then business, and in that order. And that one thing was a huge attraction for me at that point in my life. So I've been in it 5 years. And I think, again, the camaraderie, the ability to be able to bounce things off of other colleagues in this office is so unique. I don't know of any other agency, although I have never been.
No other agency does this. I've been to other agencies and they are not sharing ideas.
And sharing ideas. I mean, just this morning, Jen and I were at this inspection together, and I'm peppering her. She's been in the industry 36 years. So I've got a lot to learn, and she's probably forgotten more in the last 5 years than I have learned. So I want to be able to know that. So I think that's one of the reasons that attracted it to me was the education, and the camaraderie, the ability to build each other's businesses up and to help each other.
All right, Jennifer.
So I've been in the business 36, it'll be 37 in October. I was at Grace Hamilton Realty, and then Prudential for 1, maybe 2 years, and then Remax for 25, 26.
Oh.
What got me into real estate was I didn't have a big choice. My mother was in it, kind of got pulled into it. No, I gave him the choice. So it was, my mother was in the business with Stephen's father for years and just kind of happened. I always wanted to open a bridal shop, but here I am. And KW, I'm going to be honest, the reason I came to KW is because I held on to Stephen's shirt.
Mhm.
Stephen and Joey's shirt because I didn't want to, my mother had just retired and I didn't want to be alone somewhere with people I didn't know.
Mhm.
So that's the honest reason. I've stayed because I've been happy here. Obviously, everybody gets phone calls 100 times a day from other companies. But it's not, I don't even have the time for them to answer any questions or ask questions of them.
Okay, great. So I'm going to throw out a couple questions that I thought would be things that we could learn from. So I'm going to talk to them a little bit. This is going to be the questions so you guys can think about it, but I want you to think about the best costly mistake story. Okay, so it either cost the clients, it was a financial cost, what did you learn from it? So part of being in the industry, and a lot of us are laughing here that are sitting in the room, but that's where you learn from. I mean, right now, Jen and Art, we're working together at a home inspection. And so, you know, sometimes you have to work kind of for the client, so against each other, but with each other. And so I want you to learn from the best. And so we all make mistakes. We're all learning. Like Steve, Art, Jeffrey, Jen, they talk to each other and other people in the office because there's things that come up. I mean, somebody mentioned COVID, right? Who would have even known about COVID and a COVID addendum and attachment and this, that, and things are changing all the time. Purchase and sales used to be signed this thick in paper and now everything's online. So, so what is a story that you learned from or a huge costly mistake that for your best practices, you knew to change maybe the way you did business and you're like, that will never happen again? And maybe it could be something that you didn't know that you wish you would have known, or it could be an actual story where somebody dropped the ball on protection, but what would be something that was your best costly mistake story? Stephen?
I'm trying to go to the archives.
I know.
Get the cobwebs out, get the cobwebs out. Okay, Jen's gonna save you on this one.
I am. And actually it was my mother, and I'll throw her under the bus fully. So we were at Remax and the second deposit wasn't it. She just assumed it showed up, never showed up. The buyers walked, but we didn't have the second deposit. I am a stickler for any deposits now. Like people are like, well, I'll mail it to you. No, I'll meet you on the highway and pick it up. I don't care. I want it in the office. She ended up getting sued because that money wasn't in the account that it was supposed to be in. So make sure that, you know, if it's due in 6 days, it's there in 5. But that was a big, huge, and she ended up going in front of
The board.
the board and everything, so.
So this story that Jen's sharing ironically is one that we just talked about at the last shareholder meeting. And it's still happening in the office, in every office. Your job is to protect the contract that your buyer and sellers have signed. And earnest money comes with that. And it's great that you might know somebody on the other side of the industry and you want to be able to trust them. If you're talking to Jamie Camerata over here, who's like, I'm at the beach, I have it in the car, like, don't worry about it, I'll get it to you. That's great with the intention of that Jamie Camerata respected to Jen might be getting it to you, but her job is to have it in hand, because what if the buyers turned around and said, you know what, we didn't want to purchase it anymore? And then it's the seller's choice whether to give the money back because of default, because they chose to leave, we didn't get to home inspection. The big one that we talked about was at not purchase and sale, but protecting them at the commitment and making sure that you have that money. So that's actually a really great costly mistake, because that's a financial one, but it still happens. And literally 30% of our agents in our office still have problems getting that money here on time. So let's change that up. All right, Stephen.
Yep, I remember one way back when. So I've done bank owned property for a very long time. So early in my career, I was I listed a property on West Street in Lawrence. And I just never forget properties. I forget people, but I won't forget. It's funny. But anyway, I listed this property in West Street in Lawrence, and I did my due diligence when I did my listing. I went to City Hall, checked on the property, went to the assessor's office, 3-family property, listed everything, went through the whole 9 yards, put it on the market, sold it, got a buyer. Now, if you went in the property, it was a 3-family, it had front access, back access, stairwells, kitchens, everything. Sold the property. got a letter in the mail. Being sued because I sold a 2-family as a 3-family. So I went, I was like, this can't be. It's got all normal. He goes to, so I had 3 gas meters, electric meters. I mean, everything was like, well, what I found out is you have to go, you think you've dot every I and cross every T. You have to take every step possible to ensure that you're making and you're putting down the right decision. I went to the building inspector's office and found out in the city of Lawrence that the assessment didn't really, what it said on the assessor's card didn't really matter. It was the building inspector's office had their own card, and it was what was approved and permanent. So from that day forward, I never listed another property without going to the building inspector's office. I also, to this day, don't take anybody else's information. The list, if I get a listing and it was listed previously, I don't take their measurements. I don't take any information they wrote. I throw it all away and I start from scratch. When I had just someone, those photos that said I could do your measurements, I could put it in MLS. I said, no, thank you. I do it all myself. If I'm going to get sued, it's going to be on my dime. It's going to be on my mistake, not on somebody else's. So it's just fact check everything that you think something looks, looks a certain way. It's not always what it presents itself to be.
When you take those measurements, how precise do they have to be?
Well, I use a laser now because they tell you to count a little line. But I always put, I always, generally sometimes I'll use rounds the nearest foot in my disclosure. But if I use a laser, it's 11 feet 3 inches. I put usually put 11 feet 3 inches, and I put in the disclosures all measurements are.
But you don't have to get every nook and bend.
No, it's an
It's an approximation.
Okay.
Yeah, and I list that in the disclosure, but I think you want to give people a general idea of the dimension.
unless you're that person that wants to do the, Art's laughing because he knows what I'm gonna say. Unless you want to do all the math of all the dimensions and make sure that it equals the 3,200 square foot house that you're selling, but somewhere at public record, it's telling you approximately the square footage.
I don't do anything.
And so somehow that's
So
gonna
you don't
measure
have,
there.
but you don't have to do that.
Square footage is really based on a lot of times the exterior walls.
Right.
So you can just go
it's
around
not
the
gonna
house,
be-
measure the
you'll never
outside of the
measure.
house and say that's the square footage.
Living,
Of the living space.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Art,
Probably the one that comes to mind is a property listing that I took, did all the due diligence, went and grabbed the deed, made sure that the people that were on the deed were the one selling. And in my initial interview, I always ask, okay, what do you owe on the property? And making sure that you have, what's left on the mortgage. One of the things I found out is that in this particular listing is that they had liens on the property, and I knew about the lien. But what I didn't realize is that they actually had a tax lien on the property, that the town, the specific town, and I won't call out the town, but this particular town just kept kicking the can down the road and allowed them not to pay their taxes. So when it came to actually selling the house, they were just about in a short sale. And I really, really had to do a lot of scrambling to figure that out. So my suggestion is, when you ask those questions about mortgage, just don't ask what's on the mortgage. Do you got any other secondary liens? Do you have any tax liens on the house? Because that was a long and windy road.
So the tax lien is recorded.
everything's
Everything's
recorded, but in
recorded.
different.
But
it's
a different, I wasn't looking for tax liens in the search that I was looking for.
But if you look up, your potential seller as the grantor at the registry, those should pop up.
They should,
The lien, yeah.
but they're liens. I wasn't looking for tax liens. I was looking for
Yeah.
mortgages.
Sarah,
Have you ever run into, I've run into a couple of times where they'll ask people like, what, like, I have to ask what you own on the property, and sometimes they get super like, why do you want to know that? And I usually say it's just to ensure that, we're not in a short sale situation or you are upside down on your loan, and they say, well, I'm not. And they won't give me enough. I do an RPR on it, or it's just a matter like I do a lot of estate sales and the person who ran the bills didn't know, so they just don't know. And I'm in a specific situation right now where there's netting significantly less money than they originally thought because they had the wrong number. How do I go about, because a lot of times the banks won't talk to me unless I have the time to sit on the phone with them for like ever about what the gap is in the process.
Personally, I'm gonna, yeah.
I've never had that run into that.
I mean,
Only
usually,
happens,
I
like,
do a
in the
net,
estate
I do,
setting.
when I do mark house, I do a net sheet for everybody. then I just give them an idea and tell them, I want to let you see the real number of what you're gonna come out of the house with. It's really not about what you're selling the house for, it's what you need, or, you know,
Yeah.
what you're gonna look like when you're done selling it. Most of them will give out the information, I mean, but if someone doesn't really want to, I probably wouldn't do it. I go into public record a lot, and I can usually get fairly close by looking at how many years they've had a mortgage, and if you go into MLS PIN, you can run, what I've done
Yeah.
too, is I've run what do you call it?
Cessation.
Yeah, immunization, it tells me exactly, and I pulled it up and I said, you owe about this much, and it's
that right?
That's usually this amount.
I would reverse the
So
question.
it's just close, and so I'm only doing for that cheap, because I don't, the other thing I don't want to do is I don't want to tell somebody, you know, specifically, this is exactly what you want to go with, because then you get trying to hold you to it.
Well, it's like my dad taught me, it was like, only talk about what you know about, be careful what you say, because you could be held liable.
Yeah, I just want to give them ballpark range, and I say, you know, these are approximate costs you're gonna come across, and, you know, should be fairly close, but. You know, just avoid it, you know. But I've never had anyone, like- if
Mine's
they get
really-
upset, you know what, I
I
just
mean,
say,
it is what it is. Mine's also a situation where the house would have been foreclosed on and off if it wasn't for COVID. So I'm sure that on top of whatever they owe, there's some sort of penalties and stuff like that. And I just don't, anytime I run into a situation just like any other realtor, I'm like, I never want to.
What happens again?
There's probably more to the story if they don't want to tell you.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
there's probably more layers to that.
And I like Steve's idea about even
Turn it
leaving
around.
the net sheet.
Yeah.
With the client and say, you know, if you,
We'll do that.
right, like with their respect of their privacy,
Yeah,
here's some questions that you should be thinking about that you can answer during the time privately to calculate your own, you know,
I'll do
situation.
the basic ones that I know,
Yeah.
like, you know, I'll do you know, all this transfer tax, I'll do, my fee's gonna be all the other ones. I'd say, here's first mortgage, second mortgage, any other liens, fill those in, subtract that out, and you're gonna get what you're gonna. And
You
they
give
can
them a
do they can
reason.
do it themselves.
It's supposed to just ask me, you give them a reason.
Yeah.
This is why we're.
Because I'm your advocate, I want
This
to
is
show
why
you what
we
you
have
walk
to
out.
tell you.
I like that conversation.
All right, Jeffrey, costly mistake.
Which one of them?
I know, which one? I had a couple in my head for you. No, just joking.
Yeah. Oh, man. There's one that it was very interesting. So I listed a property. And everything went well. We listed it, got an offer. So I ended up being a dual agent in this situation. All right. So huge red flag. So what had happened was that the property was in a flood zone. But when the property was purchased, it was not in a flood zone. So I just looked when it was the last time that it was listed, like Steve said, I just went by the information, no disclosure of flood zone, so I didn't make any disclosure. When they disclose on the loan, they're requesting flood insurance, and that's when it popped up. So the buyer was furious about it. They were requesting for me to, you know, pay what they were gonna pay for insurance, but you know, how long you're gonna have the house for? Am I gonna be entitled to that payment forever?
Right.
What is it going to happen? So what ended up happening was that we did an elevation certificate, and then we were able to take out the building from the flood zone, and it didn't need any flood insurance, and that cost about $1,000 to do. So I had to do it. $1,000 wasn't much, but it was gonna be a very costly, because if the property didn't have a proper elevation,
Yeah.
probably I would have faced, you know, very, very severe. All the other ones you were thinking they should know about those.
I was hoping you were gonna talk, hold on,
That one,
I do
that
wanna
one
say,
is totally.
actually, I
different.
really I wanna share one of them because I do, because it came back around in a great manner that highlights Jeffrey as the individual, knowing that he did it correctly. And so that house that burnt down in
Yeah,
Lawrence.
so yeah,
So Jeffrey was the list
I
agent.
was the listing agent.
He listed a property, buyers came in, they did their due diligence and things like that. And from the seller, they wanted the seller to take care of a couple of items.
Yes.
Now, when a seller takes care of a couple of items, either A, I recommend proof receipt from a licensed person who fixed the GCI outlets, things like that, or whatever you're gonna do. That's how detailed I am. It doesn't mean you have to be that way. But Jeffrey did the right thing and gave different quotes from third parties that the seller gave to get these items fixed and had it in writing. So when the people purchased the property, they decide to bring in their own person to fix one of the items
Non-licensed.
that was non-licensed to fix one of the items that was going to be fixed by the seller, and instead the money was given. And when they did that, the non-licensed person fixed it and caused a fire,
He was welding on top of a roof that was over 100 years.
and the
So-
house burnt down.
And it was one of the biggest fires in Lawrence
Lawrence.
history.
Oh my
The fire started at 8 in the morning and it was 3 in the afternoon and the fire was still
Wait,
going.
so basically, I don't know who pointed it out to me, but they were like, turn on the news because Jeffrey's sign is in front of a house that's burning down. And I said to Jeffrey,
One way to get marketing.
you know, and I didn't know the story, but of course I'm always kind of playful. So I was like, you have a new marketing tagline, like the, you know, housing market's on fire. Like, I'm like, get out there, make a video. And Jeffrey's like, no, we have a situation.
Guys, helicopters, firefighters from Andover, Methuen, the house felt like the World Trade.
Yeah.
It fell forward on top of a bunch of cars. I'm talking about like a
Worst
war
case
zone, right?
scenario.
I did tell one of the people around there to push the sign inside or burn
Before it all.
before everything, you know.
So my thing about that is, even though it worked itself out and everybody was trying to sue everybody.
There was
okay,
4
whose fault?
lawsuits. So there was a lawsuit from the insurance of
Yep.
the house, right? And then the insurance had an insurance that also decided to sue. Then the house on next to it, the insurance also sued. And then that house also had an insurance that wanted to sue for the damage.
Then they wanted to shoot Jeffrey, and then they wanted to sue this person. In the end, thank God to Susan Rockberg and him, they figured it out. Jeffrey comes into my office 6 months ago, a year ago, and says, James, I have this, I don't know what to do. I have this situation. And he basically tells me the people that bought the house now want to relist the house with Jeffrey.
The people that sued.
The people that sued him. And so,
They
And
heard me
so
on the
this is
radio,
an
they wanted to
important-
work with
right.
me.
but this is why I think the story is important though. With the integrity of how everything was handled in an appropriate fashion, timely fashion, how organized it was. Jeffrey, in any situation that he's bounced off of me or anything, he is very, with the time response, he addresses the issue. When there are issues that come up and you're nervous, address the issue, communicate and get to the broker, get to myself, get to somebody. Don't walk away and just hope that some of these fires are going to go away. Not to say fires, but
Yeah.
legit fire.
Did I tell you that 2 of the houses that I sold on Haverhill Street, they've burned down? There's another one that I sold that burned, but like a year after.
Your 21 E&O is now gonna be like maybe 200.
Like, so my advice is don't buy in Haverhill Street.
All right, we're gonna move on to Jen's story.
So the house wasn't a total loss.
No, it was a total loss and they rebuilt it. Now they
Yeah.
want me to sell the
So
construction.
they,
But we said, no, thank
No,
I mean, I said with the integrity of your business and things like that, you can choose to do what you want to. However,
you.
I
so
would
they didn't
run.
buy, so that they.
I prefer it. For
They
25%.
bought the house and after they bought it, they hired somebody else to do the job that was
Okay, so
intended.
so the seller was out of the picture.
Yeah.
All right, Jen, costly story.
I did it.
Okay, sorry, everybody did it.
Okay.
That's me.
That was very
I was
costly.
so, it was costly on time and everything, money.
So the septic system.
All
I
right,
gave
so,
you.
Oh, yeah.
which
That's
one?
another one. No, that's the one between me and her. We did a
Go
deal
for it.
and it was, there's yours.
You tell it.
There it
It's-
is.
It's
Go
it's
ahead.
your boss.
Because you know, you kind of cheated. We talked about your mom last time. And so we
It
want to
was
know
my
about
luck,
you.
But it was my choice. It
Yeah, yeah, it
wasn't
was.
like I got sued or anything.
Yeah, yeah.
I felt bad for the seller who didn't know that the septic system he had was not a real septic system, so I paid for the septic.
Oh, what?
If I'm ever selling a house, I'll definitely hire her because if anything is broken, she knows how to fix it. She pays.
Well, this is actually perfect. It goes into my next question about running your business. So everyone runs their business. You're in the top, like I told you, you're in the top 6 agents in the office. So you're definitely in the top 20%. But everyone has a different value proposition and people hire you for whatever reason they choose to. So in real estate, what is your biggest challenge running your business? Because whatever your challenge is, I guarantee you is either somebody sitting here's challenge or somebody on Zoom. And how are you tackling that challenge on a daily basis? And then my next question, if you choose to answer that one first, is what's winning in your business? What do you think that you do really well that either works for you? It could be marketing, it could be You work 24/7, you answer phones, like, I don't know what it is, but there's a reason why you're sitting up here and that people have taken time out of their business to hear from it. So something that's working, and then a big challenge that you have as a successful business owner. And they did not get these questions.
No.
So a challenge for me is good time management, I think. The other thing is, at this point in my career, sometimes I'm still too responsive. I'm out too responsive. So like, I'm like, I got a phone call comes in, I want to pick it up and answer right away. If someone calls me, I feel like I gotta go show them how. So I gotta go, I don't, you know, when I owned an office, I used to tell agents, you know, you need to put time aside for yourself. And if you have another appointment, would you make that appointment? No, you couldn't make that appointment. You had another appointment. You wouldn't cancel the other, right? Now I can't teach myself that. So that's one of the things I struggle with all the time is, you know, it's a good and a bad trait. I guess it can lead into why I tell you why I think my strengths are, or I feel like at my business, I think I add a lot of value to my clients. It's what I try to do. I'm about going above and beyond, like, you know, don't over promise and undeliver, under promise and over deliver type of thing. I really believe that I try to give them the knowledge that I have, you know, and the abilities that I have to help make them make good decisions, but the decision is theirs. I always tell my clients, this is your decision whether you want to buy the house or not. I'm not going to tell you to buy this house. I've talked to people out of houses and people have said to me, my God, you're the only realtor I know that is talk yourself out of the sale. You know, because it's got to be right. Now I don't want to, you know, I want them to be able to look at me later and know that, geez, they made a good decision. So I just think it's the service that I try to provide everybody. I try to provide at a high level.
Can you just go a little deeper in when you talk somebody out of a house? How do you do that? Is it the questions from like what they've shared with you about their wants and needs,
So
or?
I'll give you a story about like one of my best friends. I was showing houses and he was just getting really frustrated. And he said, I'm just going to buy this house. This is going to do it. I said, no, you're not. He said, yes, I am. I said, no, you're not going to buy this house because it's not the house you want. And it doesn't meet all your criteria. And the right house is going to come up. But when you walk in a house and you say, man, I got to have this house. You get excited about it. That's the house we're going to sell you. And funny story in the end of that is I took him to a house that was listed, and he used to do the Caribbean all the time. We said meetings every Tuesday, and someone listed, but anyways, he listed the house as a wrong catch. He said it was a colonial. He wanted a colonial, and it was a split entry, way different house, right? So I made the appointment because I knew the house was going to sell right away. So I left him. I didn't go on the Caravan, so I didn't see the house. I made the appointment and I set it up so as soon as Caravan, people leaving, I'm standing in front of the house. It's a good friend of mine. I'm like looking at this house. I'm like, crap, I'm wasting this time. I can't believe I'm showing him this house. He got there and he's like, Steve, what the? This isn't what I was looking for. And I go, I know, but we're here. And, you know, let's just go in because I made the appointment for the salad. So let's just walk through, bought the house. Walking the house, I gotta have this house. So you never know what your buyer is gonna want. He did have it. I mean, when I read the description, I read everything. It was everything he wanted. It wasn't the style he wanted, but when he got in the house, it was everything. So,
Right.
just trying to do the right thing.
Art?
My biggest challenge in my business is probably staying focused on lead generation. And as Steve mentioned, time blocking, right? Making sure that my 2 to 3 hours is sacrosanct. I don't touch it. I don't do other things. It's difficult for me because I've got, I'm a high D and I get on a track and I want to complete it all the way to the end and get done. So if some phone call comes in or I need to have a client issue comes up, I want to solve it right then and there. So I get highly distracted. So it's really important for me to be able to stay dedicated to that time block. And that's my biggest challenge. As you probably well know.
I do know. So what does work for you in your business that you have adopted or that you do that you think works well and contributes to your success?
I think it's providing a high level of service to my clients. For example, one of the things that I do for my buyers, and I've mentioned this several times, is I provide a housewarming party for all of my buyers that I have. I provide them meats, chafing dishes, tables, all that kind of stuff. It's a lot of work. and my wife loves to do that. And I found that it provides me the satisfaction of knowing and meeting the families of all the people that I sell houses to.
That's
And
huge.
then they provide me amazing amount of referrals. I get 1 to 2 out of every single one I do.
And just to be clear, he does it at the house that they
The
purchased.
purchase, yeah, sorry.
And so they give him a list of all the people they would like to invite. So now what does that do? He puts that into a CRM platform. So now he has all these contacts. So then so he does that, he sends out the invites, they pick the date, he shows up with these items, they
Can
show
I
up with
teach a
the
class
rest.
on this?
He shows up with that, the other people provide the drinks and apps and all that fun stuff. Art socializes, walks around, does a raffle at it. And is very here's the thing though, it is a great marketing thing, but it's about being intentional and purposeful. And like he said right at the beginning, it's about meeting the people and the families and the friends and family of the people that they bought their forever home or the home that they think is their forever home.
And it offsets his challenge of sitting down and doing like time blocking your lead gen. It offsets that when you're constantly putting yourself in
Yeah, we're working on
in front
that.
of people.
Wow, yeah, I still need to work on that.
Compensates for that.
So
So
that's
I
good.
really what it takes home is, I haven't been in the business 37 years or 30 years.
Yeah.
So I haven't built up that local network that many folks have. And I find that it's a way for me to connect with those families and be able to provide that level of service and be able to get, 2 or 3 pieces of business from every occasion that I have. So.
I love it. Jeffrey, how are you?
Okay, so,
Good. All right.
so I would say what works for me,
Yes.
or my challenges first.
Okay.
I share with them is that the time blocking, sometimes we get stuck on doing something that needs the attention right now. And being focused again on taking that time to lead gen. Right now, I've been able to grow my business to a point that I have people lead generating for me. So that, takes off a little bit of the weight of me doing it. But I have to do all the follow-ups as well. So I would say time blocking, sometimes overworking. Sometimes I'll show up like at 7 here and then it's 8 and I'm still here. The other nights I left like at 1. So sometimes I overwork. And sometimes when you do that too much, I feel like you don't perform 100% because you're too tired. So you gotta rest to be the best.
Like it.
But say it to yourself
Yeah.
9 times. So
Yeah.
this is true though, because because you just crash and burn. So you
Mhm.
go, crash, go, crash. And I've heard so far 3 of you talk. We're gonna talk to Jen. We're gonna finish yours too. But the time blocking. And I think that time blocking is for, by the way, everybody, but why can't you time block the reactive and responsive time into your time? So even though you might lead generate from 9 to 11, leave 11 to 12:30 open for reaction and response time. And then go to this time to that time. Now, it's not gonna work for everybody. Again, I know that Jen's like, I run my business like this and it's successful and she sold 70 homes by herself, God bless her, last year. If it works for you, don't fix it if you don't want to. But if you're looking to do something like that, I think that we feel guilty to time block that reactive and response time when that's actually supposed to be time blocked into your time. So, all right, to finish, so that's a good thing that's happening.
So a good thing that's happening that it works, I would say, is that we are lead generation based team. I started doing cold call, very organic. We don't buy leads or anything like that. We generate our own leads, and we've gotten the same compliment from other lenders. Is that when we send them somebody, we already pre-qualify that person correctly. Sometimes we put time on people that they're really not ready. They could be ready financially, but not mentally. So us, by really stressing and asking the right questions, we can qualify and know that we're going to dedicate time to the right people. And my online marketing, my media marketing, my radio, my videos, I think all of that in conjunction, it works. It brings a lot of leads. We qualify them right, and we're consistent with the lead generation. I think that's.
I agree. I think you do that at a high level. Jen? So biggest challenge and something that's working.
Well, even though I don't do it, having time to myself is a big challenge. Because if somebody wants to see it, even though I said I'm taking Saturday off, I'm gonna go show it. It's, and a lot like Stephen, I will talk people at my husband used to say, you should talk somebody out of buying and selling today. I'd say, yes. You don't make money that way. I go, I know. But they're gonna like me tomorrow, and that's more important to me. My biggest challenge is probably is that I'm too into it. Now with Matt, hopefully I can back up a little and feel that somebody else is taking the reins.
No pressure.
Yeah. I heard it.
And then being sociable. I mean, whether it's going to a wake or school board or PTO or any function. And I'm not into the political functions, although I'm gonna make Matt go to a couple this next week, just to get him out in front of people, because I think politics is something that needs to stay on its own. But being in front of people, my advertising, I'm everywhere.
I would say
CVS.
your advertising is on point and you're consistent.
Yes.
Consistent. So every property that gets sold, you're sending the postcard. Like
I get her
you haven't
postcard,
changed
though.
that in 30 years. You've been the same. And so the 30 years of planting, seeding, watering, sunshine and everything has blossomed into a really
Makes the
organic, evolving business.
And people just, they come up to me, oh, you sell real estate. Can't even, my kids won't go to the market with me. They won't go anywhere. Like my friends, we have to go like,
Takes like 3 hours.
yeah, we have to go to like Merrimack, New Hampshire, and even there. I was in Vegas walking by and people like, hey, Jen, I'm like,
She gotta walk around like Kanye West with a mask.
so it's a curse sometimes when you want to hide. But yeah, I would say that's my.
All right, so this might be my final question, based on if anybody here or online has a question. But what's the best piece of advice that has been given to you? So what's the best piece of advice that either by a mentor or a piece of advice you heard that resonated with you that you would pass on to another real estate agent? So
I think it goes back to treat others as you want to be treated.
Mhm.
So no matter whether I have a client, I sold one of Joe's houses that was $16,000. That same day I was showing $1 million property. Both buyers were treated exactly the same way.
What else?
I'd probably say authenticity. Authentic, who you are, don't be who you think you want to be. I think that's really, really important.
Jeffrey, Steve?
That's first.
Yeah, I don't know, I get a lot of, I have to honestly say, a lot of wisdom in how I do things based upon my upbringing from my parents and lot of what's integrated in me is kind of how, as Jen said, I try to treat everybody, as I want to be treated. I don't, that's exactly how I treat everyone, but my father used to always say, you do whatever you want in your life, but just do it your best. Keep yourself pencils, be the best pencil seller. Work hard and show you care. And I think, I've never done any lead generation in the respect of how people do lead generation today. And I'm not saying you shouldn't. I would encourage everybody to do it. I'm just not good at it. I've never done it. My business has grown over the years because of referral and repeat business. And I say that not only with people that I sell to, but mortgage people, attorneys. I got an attorney referral yesterday. It's just people you come in contact, letting them know you're in business, letting them know that your ethics and your abilities of how you do your work and how you care is what's what you're going to provide for them and show them. And then when that happens, you're going to get more business because you did it in a certain way. So I just, I think that it's just as Jen belongs to everything. And I've done that in the past as well. I'm kind of going the other way right now, folks. So, it's like I'm not trying to shoots the moon anymore, but I want to maintain a strong business presence all the time. I'll continue to do that, but it's just kind of working with the people that I like to work with, and buyers and sellers, and again, other people in the business, because, you know, they're not afraid to ask you for business. You should never be afraid to ask them for business. If you're giving mortgage people a lot of loans and they're not giving you anything back, find a new mortgage lender.
That's a great piece of advice.
And make sure you vet them, because I've lost business just from referring people to the wrong.
I was
Yeah,
giving business to a mortgage lender over and over, and they were giving all their business to somebody else. And, you know, I finally said, then they called and got upset with me.
Jeffrey.
One loan once in a while.
It's basically everything that they said. People can sense it when you're being genuine. It's like you can say something and people understand something totally different from your body language, your tonality. So being genuine is one thing, and because when I started, it was all like lead gen, nobody knew me. But now that I've sold to a good amount of people, we keep on farming those same people, and they keep sending referrals because we did a good job. They had a good experience. They had the Disney experience.
Yeah.
And I think that treating people generally that they can see that you actually, that you really care, they're gonna be able to refer you more people. And doing numbers, like I noticed that comparing last year to this year, last year we were not doing DTD2, that is working in database as well. And just in closings, we grew year to year 43% when we started doing our own database. So the people that trust you, so if you treat them nice and you keep in contact with them, like Jen does, she helped me with flyers and I sent it to Boston. You remember you gave me one of yours, one of your postcards, copy paste, I just put my picture. I almost left Jennifer Hamilton as the name. Because it works, well, I'm gonna change it.
Yeah.
And I send it
Oh, the
to,
one he had was all wordy. I'm like, nobody's gonna read that.
Yeah.
Throw it away.
It's gotta
What
be
you need?
something that you
Maybe
read.
phone number.
It's gotta be something you can read from the time you pick it up to the time they throw it
Then
in the
you
garbage.
try it.
Yeah, that's what
yeah,
you're
so I send it to all Roxbury, I got a list there, 1.2, and it's closing, so it works. You know, so I would say to come back, just be genuine and be purposeful, because a lot of people want to lead gen, but they call somebody and the person says no and they get stuck there. It's like,
Yeah.
if you're gonna do it, go 100% or don't do it.
Right,
Get
which
all
goes
your,
back to what Steve said with that, you know, like be the best at what you're doing when you're choosing to do whatever you do.
We used to have to call him the cold.
The cold
Oh,
directory.
yeah.
Right.
All right, so what about the market too? So, you know, your top agents, you are working with listings, you're working with buyers. Not to be like the fortune teller, but you've been in the industry long enough or you're producing at a high level. So where do you see it going? Or what do you think is gonna happen? You know, explain your version of the shift that's potentially going to be in the front.
I want to be careful because a lot of people are posting on Facebook that,
the world's gonna end.
know that it's so busy.
Right,
Yeah.
Like, so everybody's business has cycles. Like sometimes Stephen will walk by me and be like, oh, I'm so quiet. And then I'll be really quiet and I'll say, oh, I'm so quiet. He's like, I'm so busy. So there's definitely cycles. I think, you know, the market's not gonna crash like it did way back when. I don't think we're gonna have as many foreclosures because people don't have adjustable rates. And I think a lot of people, if you can afford the house right now at 300, you might be underwater in it in 5 to 10 years, but you can still afford to pay it if everything stays the same. So I don't think we're gonna have the foreclosures like we did. But
Markets.
Oh, sorry, I was just gonna say, when you are talking people out of buying things, do you ever, I feel like when I'm doing that, it's usually for that reason. If I feel like they're gonna buy it and be upside down on it and their plan is. to
I
do it
tell them
their
all
first
right now, you're gonna be upside down in it.
Yeah.
They're
okay.
just plan on this, you don't be buying the 5-year plan right now.
Hold it out, yeah.
It's gotta be a house that you're gonna be able to at least bring up 1 to 2 kids
But
and
that's if
stay in
they're
for
putting
10
in a
years.
small down payment.
Doesn't matter.
That's on
Yeah,
anything.
lose
It
their
doesn't
money.
matter about the
Anything, you're gonna
down
lose
payment,
money
it's
either
about
way,
the
even if
down-
you're paying cash.
Yeah.
You're paying
lose
cash
money.
and now you go to sell it 5 years from now, we paid 700 and it's only worth 600. You lost that
The
$100,000.
Yeah.
way I see it is, you know, from that regard, you know, sometimes, especially with markets, I like to call it an auction market. I have a buyer I've been working with since last May of 2019. So I don't know, I've been marketing this in a while. And we've seen a lot of houses and they put offers on a few houses, but you know, some of the houses, they ask me what I think it's worth, and I tell them what I think it's worth. And I think people pay in bogus numbers. I think people just want to, you know, they don't want to lose, so they buy a house. It's crazy. But the way I look at the market, you know, I looked at the market, one of the things I pay attention to is inventory. And I looked at my inventory, I looked at the inventory when the market last spring. And if you looked at it monthly, you would see, I'll just use the one in April, for example, I would see 4, 6, 10, 4, 6 listings on, and 3 or 4 of them be under agreement, and the other 2 were new listings, just coming on, getting ready to show that weekend. You look at, you know, then towards the summer, it started growing, it was about 15 to 18 listings. And then in the summertime, it was like 28, 29 listings. Now it's probably back down to about 15 to 16, because, you know, the summer months, it tends to get, people tend to kind of walk away a little bit, and they're coming back. You know, there's still multiple offers out there, but you gotta be very careful when you're pricing, and you gotta be careful, you know, with your buyers, because I think it is trending. I'm not gonna say it's gonna be like this, Jen said. The economy, people have, for whatever reason, there's money, and people still work, you know, work. So I don't think it's gonna totally collapse. I do think you're gonna see a dip. It's got, like I said, it always self-corrects. Will it be a big dip? I don't know, but you know, I just keep watching the next coming. You know, spring is gonna tell a lot. This winter, you know, I don't pay too much attention to it after like Thanksgiving, because again, it does what the summer does. So you know, I've had some of my best months in the summer, but you know, it's still, you can kind of watch it, but see what happens kind of next spring.
Methuen was up to 35 single families yesterday active on the market.
Yeah.
So,
Huge.
so there's people putting that, everyone's trying to catch up, and the other thing everyone's doing is they're putting the house on ridiculous numbers, because, you know, I had someone say to me yesterday, you know, well, I gotta be in the market because, you know, someone put on your market for $5, you're getting $10. I said, yeah, it's worth $5. You know, maybe you can get that $10, or maybe you can get a little bit more. And I tell everybody, if I'm gonna price your house and I'm shooting at a dartboard, I'm aiming at the bullseye, but if I miss it, I want to hit it low. You know, you're not gonna lose money. You lose money if you hit it high and you sit on the market for a long time. People just don't get it, and it's a strong education, because people out there think, but people think that they can get anything they want, and if we allow them to put their house on the market for crazy, ridiculous numbers, because you're just hurting yourself, because you're gonna market, in the end, they're gonna be mad at you. They're not gonna be mad at themselves.
I make them sign a
They're
piece of
gonna
paper
be
that
mad
says
at
they
you
won't be mad
that
at me.
you listed the house.
Yeah.
Can you share
You didn't sell it, they're gonna give it to somebody else at the right price.
So Jen, can you repeat
no matter
that for
me.
everybody so that they
No
know?
matter
Perfect
me.
example,
So we're
perfect
No matter me, boss.
No,
Perfect example. No,
Jen hates being
Hold
mad
on,
at her.
hold on, reel it in.
I do hate people
Okay,
mad at me.
so
It's
what,
it's very hurtful.
Sensitive.
Like, he knows. So, like my perfect example is my listing at the beach. I wanted to put it on at 1.79. Probably worth 1.5, 1.6. They put it on at 2.2. They signed a piece of paper that said, I will not be mad at Jen if it does not sell. Simple.
but you know what,
Every
that
one of
goes back to
You
what
taking
you
the
said
court
at
for
the
that?
beginning on how you run your business. You're like, listen, I'm in it because I like people, I wanna do the right thing, I don't want people to be mad at me, and so,
But if it doesn't sell, it's not my fault,
right.
because you put the price on it.
Jen,
Right.
didn't you just have to drop the price on that too?
We've dropped it twice. We're
Yeah,
not quite
see?
where we're supposed to be. But she's
Fine.
not mad at me. She's not. She's not.
I don't get like Germany, but man, it's just like what I'm saying is they'll get to the point where they'll stop even working with you.
That's,
Yeah.
yeah,
They won't, you can't have that, then you're trying to beat them up all the time to reduce it, and they forget, in the beginning, you told them this number, because, and all you're doing now is saying, we need a reduction, we need a reduction, we need a reduction, and they get mad because they don't want to reduce, because they want to sell them something, and eventually, they do give a reduction, but it's not with you. So, you know, treat it right from the get-go, when you list the property, explain how it works, and be better off in the long run, and you get that reduction if you need it. If they want to list so high, sign a pre-signed price reduction at that time. That can tell them that this is my price and that was your price, you know?
plus you can do all the marketing and staying in touch with clients, buyers and sellers, but everyone wants to blame somebody else but themselves,
Right.
period, in life. And so if they overpaid, your fault. If they got screwed on the listing, your fault. So I don't see them using you again, by the way. So if you aren't having these realistic conversations, maybe get something signed or don't. But if you're not having these realistic conversations about, you know what, this is how the market is, people are overpaying 20 to 50,000. If you're looking to move and not stay, like Steve said, and raise a family or whatever, or Jen, and stay there for 10 years, and you're thinking about selling it in 5, you might take a hit. And if you take a hit, I still want you to use me because I'm educating you right now on the choices that you're making as the client. I think, again, it goes back to everything you guys said. If you're transparent, authentic, honest, and you're using your knowledge and educating them, then they should respect you enough to continue to use them. If you've been the person staying in touch with them, like Art was saying about, you know, that touch program and just, you know, making sure that you're touching out to them, and Jeffrey with the R2D2. That sounded like Star Wars. R2D2? I know. Hello?
That's a new one. Not doing that.
What is that? But just, you know, keeping a marketing plan with them and staying in touch. All right, so I just want to open it up to people in here if you have any questions for somebody specific or for all of them. We'll just go around. And if anybody is on Zoom and you want to post your question in the chat, then I'll go ahead and I'll read it when the next question goes around.
One
So
thing I wanted to add is that I've noticed on the market that since July 1st, there's property sitting more in the market. There's less multiple offers. Inspections are getting done. They're not being waived. And I think that as listing agents, we should, you know, take in consideration the book, the shift, and do a specific part of the book that says pricing ahead of the curve. Like if you know that a property is 500,000, you know, go at 589. Go 489. You know, make it attractive because you'd rather have a crowded open house than, you know, 1 or 2 people that are gonna send offers with crazy contingencies or probably no offers at all. And once you have been in the market for a week or 2 in this hot market that everybody thinks that is super hot, like you said, but it's just transitional. What's gonna happen is that after the 3 weeks in the market, that property is not attractive anymore. Even if you drop the price, it's not a new property. You can drop the price to do an open house and it's not gonna have the same effect as you came out to the market on the actual price that you needed to be listed. I walked away from a bunch of listings just because they want me to list 100 to 150. But at the end of the day, I'm gonna mobilize my whole team, pictures, expend money, get out there, spend time for a person that then they're gonna be mad, even though if I make them sign a contract.
yeah.
Right? So I'd rather not even take it if they're not gonna list at the price that it's actually gonna sell, because I'd rather not get paid and waste money and time into something that it's not gonna happen.
And you both said, you know, with the hot market, definitions to everybody are different. Somebody says, oh, it's a hot market. It's like, well, what's your definition of hot? And so we talk about this at the shareholder meeting, and I know that numbers aren't everyone's specialty, but if you just concentrate on some of the basic numbers, you'll see this little shift of the market has already started a long time ago. It already started, but nobody wanted to believe it because the price was driving everything and everybody is making a lot of money. So a lot of you are like, but this is my best year ever. And I'm like, says what? Your bank account or your units? Because if you're not making the units, you're not going to make them next year. It's just the market that drove the volume. And so that's where your piece of education comes in with both the buyers and sellers. But let's switch it to the next 15 minutes to any questions that you guys may have so that all of you can go back to go work with buyers and sellers. Any questions in here specific to anybody on the panel, Sarah?
I'm sure you've all had the client that seems normal and then you find out they're not after. You know, and specifically in this last market, which shouldn't be an issue moving forward because of schooling, it's like I, for instance, had a client who I obviously had set the expectation up front of this, there's an appraisal, and if we don't get somebody who's waiving an appraisal, I had to talk them down. One sells at 585. I thought it was worth like 530. We leveled at 550. So when I think I struggled with, I think I'm a little too blunt in those situations where I kind of just say, I already have this conversation with you. I don't know, like, I have to tell them they're being unrealistic. When I told him, or I told him he was being unreasonable, I said, you're being unreasonable and I need you to recognize that. He didn't like that. Do you have any other maybe vocabulary?
I think I use
that.
unreasonable.
I
I think I would say
That's
you're living in dream world. maybe.
Exactly, like at a certain point, like you, I think at what point would you advise newer agents that it's acceptable to kind of speak the truth, because that's really what they're
So,
hiring for?
I'm a straight shooter.
Yeah.
I tell people, sometimes they don't want to hear, and I run into situations like I walk away from listings and I feel I'm the next go around because they realize that. Right? But I just think you just gotta tell them that your expectations are just unreasonable expectations of what you should really expect. This is where the market is, and you know, I think that's really about it. You gotta kind of.
Yeah.
Well, a lot of people need to see to believe. So I would say like reverse psychology. So what I do a lot is I will bring like the comps and I say, hey, the square foot here was this. This is how much it sold for. Look at his kitchen. Take a look at your kitchen. Look at their floor now. Take a look at your floor. Right? I
You
bring
put
them
them
in.
into the buyer,
Right, and
you
then
turn it around and make them feel like they're the buyer.
And
If I gave you $600,000 to spend on a house, are they gonna buy your house, or are they gonna buy their house?
Yeah.
And now let's go down that road, ask those questions that Jeffrey said, and say 3,200 square feet, 3,200, but look at their kitchen, look at your kitchen, look at this, look at this. Would you spend 600 on this?
This-
Because it's the market that's telling
Right.
the
The other thing-
consumer, it's not
And
you
I'm
telling
telling you
them.
because I find when I was a newer agent, I had a harder time because I felt like, oh, well, they're like, I'm just grateful to have something. So I don't wanna, screw it up. I wanna make sure that like, in it, I lost listings too.
So when I do my comps, I don't pick out 3 comps that are like your house because you're gonna tell me you're not.
Yeah.
So I kind of like do the path.
Yeah.
I show you houses that are less than inferior to your house, and I show you houses that are superior to your house. Because people need to see that their house isn't worth what they think it's worth. So if you start showing them things that their house is worth, they recognize and say, now, what do you think of this house? Oh, yeah, I can see that's definitely worth more than my house. You put them in a place and say, I'm trying to fit you in somewhere between here and here. I don't know exactly where that's gonna be, and we'll figure that out together, but you gotta recognize that your house is certainly better than this, but probably not to this.
Yeah.
And you kind of box them into it.
So I in the listing, when we talk about price, I always say the same thing. So I always tell them, hey, let's sit down, let's talk about price after I see the property. And I always say property has 3 prices. It has the market, that is what a buyer will pay for in today's date, and that's what we're gonna find out here. It has the appraisal price, that if the bank doesn't approve the loan, then we don't have a deal here. And then it has your sentimental value. So the 3 of them, we're gonna put them in the blender. We're gonna come up with a nice number that everybody's gonna be happy. Right? Right? So I tell them this is the market, and this is the same thing that an appraisal is going to do. So what is your number so we can bring it into this blender?
Yeah.
And let's make sure that everybody's happy. I always hit them with the appraisal because it doesn't matter what you want.
Yeah.
What matters is what the appraisal is gonna come in at. And we have a sort of an average understanding of what that number is going to be. But yeah.
And I think that's great. And I want to circle back to what you initially said, setting expectations. One of the most important things to do is to tell them, I am your fiduciary, I'm your advocate. I'm going to tell you things that you're not going to want to hear. Are you comfortable with that?
Yeah.
And I get a yes,
Yeah.
because if I don't get a yes, then I'm not your advocate, then I'm not the right person for you.
That's a great
Okay.
question.
When I'm when they want to go on for 600 and they're worth 450. I say, I want you to sell it for 600 too, because that's more money for me.
Yeah.
Yes.
I don't understand why you would think I would try to undersell
I
you.
know.
I want the money as much as you do, so the more you make, the more I.
I don't get paid till you get paid.
Right.
It's just hard to gauge.
Well, not quite.
Yeah.
You can still get paid. if they don't get
Jen?
Do you guys, how good are you about profit and loss statements and keeping?
That's a
Great
great question.
Tomorrow's ALC meeting, there you go.
Joe is awesome. Joe is my guy.
I don't have a job.
Shelley is my,
We do.
Joe is awesome.
We do a budget every year. Joe keeps track. We use the monthly cash flow analysis he does for us. Team. And, we go over it. You can give me a copy. If you have questions, let me know. It's usually right on. So it's like what we do our budget. We analyze our budget every year. We look at where we're at, where we're falling, how many deals are we supposed to do a month. So yeah, I follow budget. I follow cash analysis, monthly cash analysis.
yeah, I do the same thing.
Quick books for self-employed, you
is really great. Once you set that up in there, everything you swipe on your credit card, anything you pay goes into the categories that you set up. And at the end of the year, you just print up Schedule C, hand it to your
I
account.
pay for that monthly.
Yeah, I do too.
I don't do anything.
What's that app?
But you know, QuickBooks, but you two should
Don't
sit
put fluid.
together and talk about that because,
I can tell you every day.
yeah,
Really
I-
mad.
and
Does
I-
your mileage
right.
on your phone?
Matt, you
Yeah.
need to.
I also-
Business, personal, business, personal, business.
so Brian would like to teach a class on what he's learned about QuickBooks is what I heard. And Jen will definitely be part of the class and maybe Heidi might add value to the class. But sometimes too, when we ask that great question, and we'll continue to make sure that like how you watch your money. Sometimes I think you make it complicated and you think this big word like profit and loss, and it's like, it's really not as complicated as you think. And if you sit down with somebody for taxes and not during tax season, do it sometime maybe in August, September, October, where they're catching their breath and stuff. They'll sit down and they'll give you some of the things that you're supposed to track. They'll give you at least the categories at which you should be doing as something basic, and then just start there. Because you are self-employed, and so when you make 8,000 from us, you really didn't make 8,000. You forgot about the tax guy. So,
Just don't be afraid.
Jeffrey.
Yeah.
Don't be
I do the same thing, QuickBooks. I do the same thing, QuickBooks.
QuickBooks.
The business card, I have it on QuickBooks, the business account, I have it on QuickBooks.
Mhm.
And at the end of the month, I sit down and I go over all the expenses, what it came in and, you know,
make sure it stay within the budget.
I'm gonna flip the fifth on this one.
I know, but you leverage it too. Hold on, that's not true, because I just talked to Francesco or Francisco, whatever his name
Francesco.
is.
Oh, I do my taxes with them.
I know, but I sat with him and he did, listen, he tells you to pay your quarterly taxes.
Oh, yeah, I pay mine.
So profit and loss for you though, might not even be a QuickBook, but you actually do it because you know from somebody who's telling you though, where you're spending, where you need to slow down, where you can buy a car, where you can't buy a car, where you should be not hiding your money, but putting your money, and where you should be doing this. So for you, you might not maybe micromanage it down to a monthly, like I spent this in marketing and stuff, but you do to a level of accountability from somebody else.
Okay.
I'm serious, and why not?
No, I really,
It's true
The
though,
other
because
thing
I
to do
think
is
you're
you
hard
should
on
all have-
yourself.
you should all have, a business checkbook and a private check, right, personal. If you operate everything out of your, in a business credit card, and private credit cards, if you operate everything on there, I mean, it's not to make it really complicated. It's actually just, reconcile your book, monthly, and you'll see what you spent and you'll see what you brought in.
And most of your
We can
credit cards do
simplify
this
it.
for you, by the way, which I just learned. Thank you, MasterCard and Discover. So when you go at the top, it will break it down for you. Restaurants, this one, that one. Yeah, and when you click that, it actually gives you the report of everything that you spent at these locations that are associated with these categories, which you can change on your statements. So you, if
Put it in
QuickBooks
business,
is
let-
too,
Let your accountant tell you did it wrong.
I know. Michael,
So what percentage of your business is listings and what percentage is buyers?
Oh, I should know that
That's
off my head.
this is
I
good.
think
Yeah, so-
70-30. 70 listings, 30 buyers.
I would say 60-40. 60
Mine's about
listings.
60-40.
Probably
68.
I'm probably about 80-20, 75-25 listing.
So what's the
How do you
magic
think
there?
That over the years, doing it that way or
What
having
was-
a waiting there.
So it was the other way
Affected
before,
your-
Michael. When I started this business, it was all buyers, right? Because I didn't have really, starting out, you don't really have people. So I built my all people, all business based upon working with buyers. And I still work with buyers. I still show a lot of them, especially now lately. I'm not a buyer agent anymore. So, I mean, I do a lot of that myself. But it switches it, you start with buyers and then you kind of start working the other way. And over time, you kind of look the same and kind of choose what direction you want to go. But I mean, I always have buyers. I just tend to find I get more stuff.
Yeah, and the buyers you had when we were 18, 20, turn into your listings 10, 20 years later. Or their, or their kids become your clients.
And in this,
People that buy the wrong house, like me.
I know, that's happening more and more because people are making like these choices, like Steve said, like, I need it, I want it, but really they didn't want it.
of
But I
buyers
will
want
say, this market, you know, even top agents that you might look up to, I think everybody has somebody they look up to in real estate. Everybody struggled this year when they were working with buyers. Buyers was like the worst somewhat place to be. So if your business was heavy on buyers, it did one or two things if you wanted to make money. They got out, or they had to get creative on how to get those offers accepted, or you had to learn how to take a listing or work for a listing or call for a listing or lead generate for a listing. You had to flip it somewhere. And I think that, guys, I think you're going to see more of that. We're going to be talking at the shareholder meeting about some of the Reology and now Zillow and Redfin and all these online. I definitely see in the next year or two that if you don't have some sort of influence and relationship with the people that you've done business with or that you want to do business with, then it's going to be the internet. And Keller Williams can't build fast enough. No company can build fast enough what the internet already is. And so these places like Realtor.com and Zillow and third parties, they're capturing information all the time, and the costs are going to go down. I mean, one thing that I learned yesterday from some team leaders who are on Gary's mastermind call was that they think it's going to be a shifting market where buyer agents go away, where either the attorney, depending on state, will take care of it. It will be more of a flat fee. There'll be no compensation given to a buyer, and it will be, I'll take your listing because I'm doing the job and I'm going to take it for 3%, which is better than that 5 or 6%. Because remember, you're giving half of it away. I'm just taking your listings. I become that list agent, and my job isn't to go find the buyer. Somebody will bring the buyer, but then the buyer agent's going to go have to find the money on their own through the buyer. And if they don't want to pay you, they'll pay the attorney. And so some of this stuff that we're probably like, that won't happen. We also didn't think the world was going to be shut down for a year and a half. So you have to always be reading and educating yourself and being knowledgeable about the options of where your business is coming from and staying in touch with all that. So I want to thank you guys today for taking your time out of your business, and all of you and online. And if you have any questions for the four of them, when we send this out, you can email them at any time. All right. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Perfect. Okay. Goldfish will be in my book. Did you find anything?
Yeah. It's like there's something.
I will call you in 5 minutes.
Yesterday I get a call.
I want to talk to you. How did Elaine Mankey's house not get this invite?
They've been friends with him for a long time. with their kids.
Really?
Yeah.
I
know,
want
I
to
was
talk to
shocked.
you.
I know.
No, because listen,
Yeah.
she has it in that, like that neighborhood
Yeah.
book club, this, that.
Yeah.
And
Elaine
then-
doesn't come to book club. Elaine doesn't like my neighbor.
Oh. And when I looked at it
So you're
online, I was like,
guilty by
that kind of looks like a
association.
well, I was like 800,000 on Greenville. Me in my head, I was like, that's ridiculous. And then I'm like, oh, that kind of looks like Elaine Mankey's house, but I didn't see anything. And then, because it just came on my setup.
Yeah.
And then the next day on Facebook, I see her post, and she was like, just
Living.
posted our house. And I was like,
You're like, excuse me,
well,
what?
she posted, so it looks like Skittles and rainbows, like, hey, we can't wait to start our new chapter individually, because they're getting a divorce.
Oh, I didn't know that.
So I'm like, that's funny. You
That
posted
may
as
be
like,
also why she didn't want to talk about it.
It could be,
So
she
she
could have
like-
maybe went with someone who.
all I
mean,
know is that
him
her
as well.
son Carter, told a group of kids that he's friends with this summer.
Mhm.
And I heard it when I was at La Rosa's. Some of those kids were there, and they said to Mike Paul, hey, did you hear that Carter's parents were gonna get a divorce? So I heard it back in like
Always
July.
seems like they were always happy.
I used to be really good friends. They used to have been close, but they got through them. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, she didn't interact in the neighborhood. Like she would walk the Ziggy.
Yeah.
You know,
each one of them would walk, but they, I
Do you
don't, I
feel
didn't,
good? No, I just came in to say that was so good. I thought maybe the panel.
She was watching
Oh,
it. Yay, thanks, Kate.
but I don't know what falling out she had with Rainey, but she and Rainey had a big.
Get out of here.
Yeah.
Well,
Oh,
well,
a
okay,
couple
well-
years ago now. They don't talk.
Well, all right, so when we got out of that group,
Mhm.
it was because, and again, it's like, there's a bully group everywhere, but, and Rainey went back to work
Mhm.
as the paralegal or whatever, the paraprofessional in Lawrence, when she was a higher teacher.
Yeah.
But Jack is a little bitch, her son, he's a spoiled little brat, and he thinks he's all that, and he's hard to manage, he just is. But Rainey's hard to manage too, her.
And is
her
he, so is
personality-
he the same age as Carter?
Yes, and
Right.
Michael.
Uh-huh.
And so Carter was neat, was like blatantly leaving Carter out when Brendan,
Luspiza.
Nick Luspiza, and all of them used to be friends.
Mhm.
And then a couple of years ago, Elaine and I had coffee, we were catching up, and I'm like, how's everything going? You know, are you still like in the clique of the group? Because it goes into Webster Woods, like those people also are friends with that Webster Woods group. And she's like, you know, Darren and I just to like distance ourselves a little bit from it, just wasn't healthy for Carter, it wasn't healthy for us. And Rainey just used her for rides, used her for this, like, and it was never reciprocated. It just seemed like a one-way relationship. But then I saw Elaine last year and she got her second knee done or whatever, and we were chit-chatting. And I say, how's the click? She goes, we don't talk. I was like, oh, okay. But that was in Honeydew Donuts. Like I wasn't gonna get into like a conversation. I don't know what happened, but
Rainey she didn't go into it, but I mean, obviously I live right next to her, so I'd see her more frequently.
Yeah.
You know, and be like, but she said, I don't know exactly how it happened, but something between the kids and like she didn't, you know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
that's interesting.
She doesn't talk to me anymore or something like that. And I was like, oh, it's kind of, but,
Anyway,
yeah.
I was just surprised when I saw it because I was like,
And
when
then
I see
she's
Jen
telling
Ramsey-
everyone, like, so at book club, I
Yeah.
couldn't go to book, I was down in Philly this weekend with my daughter, but everyone's like, oh my God, they already have an offer of 860 and they've got it, it's a backup offer. So if they don't get they're gonna list it 865. If they don't get it, they're gonna take the 860. And then it came out at 875 and everyone's like, it's not an 875.
It's not.
house." No, and she added the basement space in. It's not, it's just under.
It's small. Let me tell you something.
It is
Whoever
small.
took those pictures made that house look bigger than, way bigger.
But that's
And
what
then
they're
when I
supposed to
went,
do.
and I was like, no, it's not. That kitchen is like,
Mhm.
it's, everything is compartmentalized. It's not big at all.
And she
There's,
does.
if that house goes for 875, I
But
swear
they
to
want
God,
to
I'm
get the people in. so
I'm
they're
selling
like,
my
"Let's make
house.
these fit
I don't
for
know where
us."
I'm
Looks like
going,
it's
but I'm
Pottery
selling.
Barn, and it's to go fit for that kind of thing, but she also, I also know when they put the deck on, so they put the
Yeah,
deck on and
I
then they
remember.
enclose the deck as space, they
Yep.
don't have the right permits for
No,
that.
no, they didn't pull
Right.
permits.
No,
When
I-
she
so
was
I'm
doing,
like,
hold on, when they were doing the basement.
I don't
she
know what
didn't
I
pull
would
it
have done
for
in
the-
that situation, because I know about that.
Oh,
Right,
because you
so
know
then
it's
you
not
technically
disclosed.
have to, like.
Well, yeah, and they didn't pull basement permits, and the kitchen, they didn't pull that permits to take that wall down because they just said that they're gonna say that there was like a problem or an electric fire, and so they did for, they got a permit for just like, we're just doing new cabinets,
Mhm.
a new fridge, a new this, new that, so they got a basic one, but they didn't have a permit to
And
take
they also
that
have
wall
problems in
down.
the basement with their, 'cause they had when the
Do you
houses
need me,
were built
Michael,
on
or
the
do you need
side.
Joe?
I
Well,
just had a question.
Oh, okay, yeah.
I'm trying to figure out later.
No, it's all right. I'll come see you in like 1 minute. I just felt bad because I figured you were waiting for one of us and I was like,
No.
oh, okay.
The story.
Or stay.
Well,
Or
yes,
stay.
but no, but.
Okay. No, that's all right. Or stay. It's fine.
So the story I was gonna tell you is yesterday I get a call, right, and I look
Yeah.
at my phone and it's Cal, right?
Shelly?
Yeah, and I was like, "Ah, okay, all right, so I go. Thank you. Oh, I need a favor. I'm like, oh. Like,
Like, just
Yeah.
because I answer the phone does
To
not mean I'm
go-
giving you a favor.
all right, so I'm like, okay, all right, what do you need? And she's like, I'm in New York and I need you to show 2 properties today. And one of them says you need 24 hours, but I just need to show them today, right? So I end up calling the agent. I get in there, right? Because it's gotta be today. I meet this woman who's there and I said, so how does this fit with what you're looking for? And she goes, oh, I'm not really in a hurry. Both properties had been on the market for a month, like 3 weeks to a month, both of these condos in Andover.
Yeah.
And she's like, I don't know when I'm gonna buy. I'm getting separated. I'm not really in a hurry. I'm like, kidding me? Like,
Oh.
I dropped everything to go to show these two. I was like, I have.
She's something.
Well, she
I
is
called
something.
John.
That is, you know what, that is all I have to say, is she is something.
She is
John, I called John Marion. He goes, yep, I have to send, and I've done things for her. Help her with, like, I can't do these pictures. Can you get my pictures in,
Wait,
that was
a
years
technology
ago.
uploading
Yeah.
and scanning sound of thing,
Yeah.
but
But John said, that's part of her, when
That's it.
she makes your, her urgency becomes your urgency, and
that's
all of a sudden,
Oh,
she
she's
got
really
her
good at
client.
playing
victim.
the victim, that she
I'm
doesn't
like,
know how
oh,
to do
help,
anything.
help.
Oh,
She
Jen,
does.
I will do it for you, like, oh, yeah. no,
You're like, no, you won't.
Yeah.
I actually
She
don't
does
want you to
she
do
does
it.
all the time. Well, I love,
I don't want you to show.
I love when she
for me.
calls and she goes, did I talk to the person? Can I talk to the girl who's at the front desk? I'm like, we don't have a director first impressions. Who are you looking for? She's Ashley? Yeah, what about Ashley? I need her to do, that's not Ashley's job. Oh, no, we don't, Cal. You have to hire someone to do that for you. Oh,
Oh, I know, for a while.
I
was
love
put
when she-
pictures in, she's like, can you show me again?
no, she
Jen,
just
can
wants
you
to,
show me again?
she knows what she's doing. She just doesn't want to do it. That's what I said to her. That was when Kate started. I'm like, here are the people you need to worry about. I go, she is gonna pretend that she is dumb and doesn't know anything when she in fact knows everything. I go, she is not as dumb as she wants to pretend she is. That's all I'm gonna say, because she likes to play victim and pretend she doesn't know anything. And I knew that she would see Kate and be like, oh, fresh meat.
Yeah.
Because that's what she tried to do to Ashley. And I'm like, stop it. Don't do it, girl.
And I had company over last night. My cousin.
Yeah, like you-
His cousin was
You
in from San Diego.
inconvenienced my
And so I had
entire
to-
day for this woman who actually doesn't, are you even approved? She's probably not even pre-approved. Like, that's the other thing. Oh, people.
I'm Matt.
Oh, okay, that's
Yeah,
nice to meet
nice to meet you.
you. Thank you, so I'm just learning about everything.
Yeah, me too. I've only been here.
You're lucky your mom's.
Yeah.
His mom's a G, she's not just an Asian, she's a mom, like, obviously, yeah, so it's nice to she's have like, if I that. had a real estate rock star that I was like obsessed with before I got here, it's like, oh my gosh, she's like, cover my house. I love her, I still do. Yeah, we have the same kind of philosophy about real estate, it's really just a relationship business, and if you just really nice to people and good to people, you usually will, okay, so that's like, it's very simple, but.
And then I feel weird, I'm like at your table, should I sit back?
No. So I want to talk to you guys about referrals today, because Amanda's run into a few issues, and I think it's important to know, whereas not all of you have multi-state licensure, where, you know, a lot of your, like, you're getting
I'm trying.
until you get to that point, if you have an answer business, I can't wait. I need to-
All the people I know. All that's why all my referrals are like, oh, I have to refer you because they're not licensed.
And then I want to kind of open it up to like just general questions and do general questions. And it was just, it was something I think it's just better to discuss it. And I'm not going to pull up anything on my screen. I'm just really good to my rules, like the process.
It's nice just as a person just to be able to hear like what they
Yeah.
do.
Top agent panels, I feel like they did really good. Like to get a lot of people on because it's not a lot of people on that. There's a lot going on. What do you got?
I got a couple of houses.